In the quaint village of Eldershire, where whispers of gossip floated through the cobbled streets and the scent of freshly baked bread lingered in the air, there lived a woman known only as Mrs. Agnes Thistlewood. At first glance, she seemed like just another poor old lady, a relic of a bygone era draped in faded shawls that hung loosely from her frail shoulders. Her hair, once vibrant auburn, had long surrendered to a silvery hue, cascading in soft waves around her lined face, which bore the marks of a hard-lived life. Mrs. Thistlewood was often seen shuffling slowly down the lane, her gnarled fingers clutching a worn wicker basket filled with trinkets and odds and ends she collected from the thrift store or on her infrequent jaunts to the market. Despite her modest stature, there was an air of dignity about her, a glimmer of something extraordinary behind her cloudy blue eyes that frequently met the ground as she walked. Villagers would offer fleeting glances, their eyes alight with pity or disdain, yet few took the time to truly see her for who she was. To many, Mrs. Thistlewood was merely an eccentric old woman, a figure to be avoided rather than embraced. Her reluctance to engage in mundane chatter often made her seem standoffish. Conversations at the local cafe would stop abruptly when she entered, replaced by quiet snickers or whispered judgments. Children were warned not to approach her, their imaginations painting tales of danger and decay surrounding her person. She was an outsider in a community that valued social standing and material success, qualities she neither possessed nor sought. What no one in Eldershire knew, however, nestled beneath those tattered clothes and the air of neglect, was a heart bursting with stories and treasures unseen. Behind closed doors in her tiny cottage cluttered with memories, Mrs. Thistlewood amassed a wealth that could rival the finest collectors, a collection of rare jewels procured from journeys both distant and near. While society dismissed her as merely the poor old lady, they failed to grasp that within her lay a spirit unbroken by time's challenges. As the seasons changed and the leaves began their autumn dance, whispers would soon turn into gasps of intrigue when the truth about Mrs. Thistlewood's hidden riches began to unravel. Yet until then, she remained an enigma, the lonely figure who wandered through life unrecognized and alone. Mrs. Agnes Thistlewood's life was anything but ordinary before she became the solitary figure wandering the streets of Eldershire. Born into a modest family in a bustling port city, her childhood was colored with tales of adventure and exploration told by her seafaring father. He regaled her with stories of far-off lands, rich cultures, and treasures beyond imagination, igniting a wanderlust in Agnes that would shape her destiny. As a young woman, she embarked on journeys of her own, traveling to exotic locales where she encountered vibrant markets filled with colorful fabrics and trinkets, as well as places steeped in history where jewels sparkled under the sun's radiant glow. It was during one of these escapades that Agnes fell in love with gemstones. Their beauty, uniqueness, and stories each piece held captivated her. Her first significant fortune came unexpectedly when she found herself amidst an ancient bazaar in Morocco. While exploring the labyrinthine alleys filled with merchants, she stumbled upon an elderly jeweler who recognized her passion for stones. In what felt like a stroke of fate, he offered to sell her a collection of rare emeralds at a price that seemed almost absurdly low. Trusting her instincts and equipped with the small savings she'd managed to scrape together, Agnes made the leap into the world of gem collecting. Over the years, Agnes expanded her collection through serendipitous encounters. Vibrant festivals had introduced her to travelers who carried hidden treasures from far-flung corners of the globe, whether it was an opal from Australia or sparkling sapphires from Sri Lanka. She learned about the art of negotiation and developed relationships with artisans and traders who respected her knowledge and passion for gems. However, it wasn't just purchases that enriched her life. It was also unexpected gifts that came from friendships forged during her travels. Lives intertwined over shared meals, laughter around campfires, and small acts of kindness left an indelible mark on her heart. A jeweler's apprentice in Istanbul once gifted her a delicate bracelet after hearing stories about her dreams. This personal connection made every piece special. Life led Agnes back to Eldershire when circumstances changed dramatically. Cherished friends had aged or passed on, making it difficult for her to remain on the road. Legends whispered among villagers about a treasure trove amassed over decades were unbeknownst to them. It wasn't merely wealth that defined Mrs. Thistlewood, but rather an extraordinary journey woven through life's tapestry, one adorned with glistening jewels and unforgettable experiences waiting silently to be shared. Agnes Thistlewood's fascination with jewels began on a sun-drenched afternoon in Marrakesh, at a bustling bazaar that seemed to pulse with life. Stalls brimmed with vibrant textiles, the air heavy with the scent of spices, and it was here that her heart first fluttered at the sight of a deep green emerald nestled among other exquisite stones. The vendor's eyes sparkled with the same vibrancy as the gem itself as he recounted its journey from the mountains of Colombia, a story that ignited Agnes's passion for collecting. The moment she held that emerald in her hands, something shifted within her. It was not just a stone, it was a piece of history, a connection to the earth and its hidden wonders. With her meager savings clutched tightly, she struck a deal that felt like destiny. This first acquisition opened the floodgates to a world unlike any she had ever known, a world where each gemstone held not only material value but also unique stories wrapped in mystery and beauty. Her heart raced at every new find. An opal's vibrant play of colors could remind her of a sunset over the ocean. An antique sapphire whispered tales of royal courts. Each discovery fed into her relentless drive, spurred by the energy of those markets and the extraordinary individuals she met along the way. She reveled in negotiation, whether haggling with well-seasoned traders or excitedly exchanging stories about their respective travels and discoveries. During one memorable encounter in Jaipur, she sat cross-legged on a woven mat beside a master craftsman who transformed raw stones into stunning pieces of art. Under his skilled hands, stones morphed into delicate necklaces and enchanting rings while he shared his profound love for each creation. Inspired by his passion, Agnes realized that collecting jewels was not merely about ownership. It was about honoring their origins and cherishing the connections formed through shared experience. Despite societal perceptions of her current circumstances back in Eldershire, Agnes wore her passion as armor against judgment. The old lady shuffling along cobbled streets had memories richer than most could grasp. Each jewel sleeping behind her cottage walls echoed laughter from markets around the globe and friendships kindled over lanternlit dinners. Rather than allowing her isolation to extinguish her excitement, she found solace in tending to her collection. Polishing stones each evening felt like revisiting dear friends. It connected her to vibrant moments from her past and reminded her that true wealth resided not only in material possessions but also in the joy they once brought to life's journey. Through this lens, her world remained full of wonder, even as others overlooked the treasures surrounding them. In Eldershire, the perception of Mrs. Agnes Thistlewood was shaped not only by her strange habits but also by the villagers' preconceived notions of wealth and status. To her neighbors, she was simply a poor old lady, a relic of the past who shuffled down streets with her tattered shawls and mismatched shoes. Whenever she emerged from her cottage, the air filled with a blend of curiosity and skepticism. Most locals were quick to dismiss her, perpetuating a narrative that painted her as a figure to be avoided rather than engaged with. The community often watched Agnes with a mixture of pity and amusement as she occasionally ventured into the marketplace, where whispers would follow her like shadows. They observed her carefully inspecting rings and bracelets that glittered in the sunlight, their judgment colored by the stark contrast between her frugal appearance and the extravagant treasures she seemed to adore. Many assumed that her interest in such luxuries was misplaced. What could a woman like her possibly do with jewels? Such spending felt frivolous to those who had conformed to local expectations of modesty and practicality. As Agnes recounted tales of where certain pieces came from, eyes rolled and eyebrows arched. Local gossip reinforced the notion that she was deluded or stuck in a different time altogether. While some speculated about whether she was merely living out fantasies or reliving dreams from days long gone, others viewed her fascination with gems as evidence of an eccentricity that could not be justified in their world. Children were often warned to steer clear of Mrs. Thistlewood, regaled with stories of how bizarre old women sometimes collected strange things in their homes, though they were unaware that within her walls lay history and beauty seldom understood by their parents. If one dared to engage with her, even briefly, it became a topic ripe for gossip during village gatherings, framing the old lady's life choices as misguided at best. Despite this isolation enforced by society's judgments, Agnes clung to each gem as a reminder of the connections she'd created around the globe. She found strength in memories, abundant laughter shared over meals with companions made during travels or insights gained from artisans eager to share their craft. In their dismissals lay a constant reminder. While they could not grasp the depth of what her collection meant, it was hers alone, celebrating not just jewels but fragments of life stitched together beautifully despite the loneliness encircling her in Eldershire. Through it all, Agnes remained resolute, allowing their perceptions to fade into the background while she retrieved joy from her extraordinary journey. One sunny afternoon, as Mrs. Agnes Thistlewood dutifully polished her collection of gems in the garden outside her cottage, a curious young girl named Lily ventured closer. A bold spirit with wild curls and lively green eyes, Lily had often seen the old lady shuffle past her house but had never dared to approach. On this day, however, something about the sunlight glinting off a particularly radiant amethyst drew her in. "Excuse me," Lily called out tentatively, her voice barely rising above the gentle breeze. Agnes looked up, momentarily surprised to find a child standing before her with an inquisitive expression. "What are all those shiny things?" she asked, pointing at the gems with unabashed enthusiasm. Well, Agnes began, hesitating for a moment before recognizing a glimmer of innocence and curiosity in the girl's gaze. These are very special stones from around the world. She gestured for Lily to come closer, carefully lifting the amethyst to show its deep purple hues shimmering in the light. Mesmerized, Lily approached tentatively. "Can I touch it?" she asked eagerly. With an approving nod from Agnes, the girl gingerly stroked the cool surface of the stone, her eyes widening at the sensation. This simple interaction ignited a delightful conversation about each gem's origin. The emerald from Morocco that took her back to bustling bazaars and tailies of artisans who crafted their beauty through generations. As minutes turned into hours, Agnes found herself sharing stories she hadn't recounted in years. How she sought treasures along winding paths in far-off lands, and how each precious stone carried with it not just beauty, but history. Lily absorbed every word with fascination while giggling at tales of mishaps and serendipitous encounters that colored Agnes's life experiences. In turn, it became apparent that Agnes was enchanted by Lily's youthful exuberance and untainted view of the world. This encounter blossomed into an unexpected friendship that flourished through shared laughter and dreams woven between stories of splendor and adventure. The barrier of age melted away as they explored each other's worlds, one full of vibrant imagination and boundless possibilities while the other bore rich tales steeped in lived reality. As they bid farewell that day, Lily promising to return, Agnes realized that this chance meeting began shifting perceptions not only for them but also within herself. Even as whispers from villagers continued, here was a bright soul who saw beyond her frayed shawls and mismatched shoes, who recognized beauty not in wealth or status but in connection itself. The power of their friendship would soon ripple through Eldershire, challenging preconceived notions about wealth, a gentle reminder that treasurable moments could blossom from even the most unexpected encounters. As the bond between Agnes and Lily deepened, the old lady began to recognize the profound value of companionship that had long eluded her. Each afternoon, Lily would visit, her laughter echoing in the garden as she recounted tales from her day, infusing Agnes's solitary existence with vibrant energy. Slowly, the cottage that once felt like a shrine to lost adventures transformed into a sanctuary of shared moments and stories. Their conversations shifted from mere discussions about gemstones to profound exchanges about dreams and hopes. Lily's innocent curiosity encouraged Agnes to delve into her past with renewed vigor. One afternoon, while showing Lily a delicate necklace adorned with shimmering opals, Agnes recounted how she had once danced in a festival in Australia under a starlit sky, the opals reflecting the colors of the night. "It was magical," she said, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia. "Those stones held the essence of that moment." Lily listened, her eyes wide with fascination. "Can we dance like that one day?" she asked earnestly, igniting a spark of joy in Agnes's heart that she hadn't felt in years. The question hung in the air like a promise, a reminder that life still offered moments of wonder amidst their simple routines. As weeks passed, the villagers began noticing the transformation in Agnes. The lightness in her step and the smile that danced across her face were unmistakable. Even the whispers shifted from ridicule to intrigue. Children who once avoided her were now drawn in by Lily's exuberance, curious about the stories hidden within each of Agnes's gems. Their interactions became an open invitation for others to engage with her as well, slowly dismantling the barriers erected by preconceived notions. One day, while sharing tea and homemade biscuits on the porch, Agnes confided in Lily about her loneliness and the burdens of being misunderstood. "It was easy to hide behind my jewels," she admitted softly, "but what I truly craved was connection." Lily nodded, her small hand reaching out to squeeze Agnes, an unspoken understanding passing between them. In that moment, Agnes realized that it wasn't just the jewels that enriched her life. It was the connections woven through shared stories and laughter with others. The treasures she had once hoarded for their material beauty now paled in comparison to the priceless memories being created with Lily and the growing circle of friends who began to see past her frayed shawls. The old lady no longer felt isolated. Instead, she was surrounded by warmth and affection that filled her heart with purpose. As friendships blossomed around her, she understood that true wealth lay not within her collection of jewels but in the relationships formed through genuine connection. In Ellen's garden, where laughter mingled with stories of adventure, a community slowly began to emerge, one that valued companionship over riches, illuminating a path toward acceptance and understanding for Agnes Thistlewood. As Agnes Thistlewood's friendship with Lily flourished, the village of Eldershire began to react in a myriad of ways. Some residents, intrigued by the vibrant exchanges they observed between the old woman and the youthful girl, found themselves drawn closer. Whispers of transformation spread through the streets. Tales of Agnes sharing laughter and stories with Lily caught the attention of others who had previously dismissed her as a mere eccentricity. Curiosity sparked interest among children who were once told to stay away from her, now eager for their own encounters with Agnes's shimmering jewels and captivating tailies. They approached her garden hesitantly, but found an inviting warmth that contrasted with their parents' warnings. The laughter that drifted from Agnes's porch became an irresistible lure, drawing the neighborhood's youth into her orbit, where she welcomed them with open arms and shared her treasures without hesitation. However, not all responses were positive. Many adults continued to view Agnes through a lens clouded by prejudice and societal norms. What could she possibly teach these children? They muttered. Some regarded the blossoming friendships as frivolous distractions for both Agnes and Lily, failing to see the genuine connections being forged. These naysayers remained steadfast in their beliefs that Agnes was simply a relic of a bygone era, unworthy of genuine interaction due to her perceived poverty. On market days, when Agnes visited to sell homemade jams or crafts, gossip lingered like fog around her presence. Eyes rolled as she exchanged vibrant banter with children, while some elderly patrons clucked their tongues disapprovingly at the sight of young ones gathered at her feet. "She's filling their heads with nonsense," they would say, convinced that her stories of far-off lands were merely fanciful fabrications rather than enriching narratives. Yet there were others who began to sense a shift in the air. A few villagers, once skeptical, started to recognize the richness of experience that Agnes brought into the community. They lingeringly watched children leave her garden beaming with joy, a spark ignited by shared adventures and dreams, slowly realizing that perhaps they had misjudged both Agnes and what it meant to have wealth in any form. Amidst this backdrop of mixed reactions, Agnes remained steadfast in forging her connections. She found strength in knowing that each child's laughter echoed louder than the whispers of discontent. As friendships blossomed around her garden like wildflowers breaking through concrete, it became undeniable. Agnes was no longer merely a poor old lady collecting jewels. She was a cherished companion weaving threads of joy and acceptance into the fabric of Eldershire's community. And as she continued to embrace each new friendship, she gently challenged those who clung to outdated notions about wealth and status, revealing instead the true treasure found in connection and companionship. The annual Eldershire Summer Fair approached, and this year, the event promised to be especially enchanting with the arrival of outside vendors and entertainers. Over coffee at the local cafe, whispers about Mrs. Agnes Thistlewood's hidden treasures began to circulate after her friendship with Lily reignited interest in her once-ignored collection. Fueled by both curiosity and a spark of newfound respect, several villagers encouraged Agnes to showcase her jewels at the fair. Despite her initial hesitations, Agnes felt a thrill at the prospect of sharing not just her gems, but also the stories that accompanied each piece. The fair offered an opportunity not only to display her beautiful collection, but also to transform her old reputation from that of a reclusive eccentric into a cherished storyteller. As the day of the fair arrived, she adorned herself in a simple yet elegant dress, carefully accessorizing with a few select pieces from her collection. An intricate silver necklace set with glowing moonstones that reminded her of sunny Moroccan skis, and a pair of opal earrings whose colors reflected the vibrancy of life. At her booth, the air filled with excitement as villagers, both familiar and new, wandered by, many drawn in by curious children who trickled into her space. For the first time, those who once shunned her began to approach. Curiosity filled their eyes as they marveled at the stones that sparkled like stars under the afternoon sun. Agnes found herself recounting tailies, each stone triggering memories from distant lands. She spoke of dancing under starlit skies in Australia and handpicking sapphires by the banks of a river in Sri Lanka. As affluent members from neighboring towns arrived, they too were captivated by Agnes's stories. Among them was Lady Eleanor, a discerning collector with an eye for rare gemstones. Fascinated by Agnes's captivating narrative and unique pieces, she struck up a conversation that drew other wealthy patrons in as well. They listened intently, captivated not just by the beauty of the jewels, but also by the profound experiences woven within each story. Yet amidst all this attention, Agnes remained humble. She invited children to touch the gems, eager to share not only their beauty but also ignite their imaginations with dreams of adventure. This openness inspired awe among onlookers. Even some skeptics felt their hearts soften towards Agnes as they witnessed laughter and joy radiating from her booth. As the sun dipped low, casting golden hues on the bustling fairgrounds, something extraordinary had transpired. The villagers began to recognize that Agnes was no longer an overlooked figure, but an essential thread in Eldershire's community fabric. Connections blossomed across generational lines, bridging gaps once defined by prejudice and skepticism. In showcasing her jewels, Agnes transformed perceptions around her reputation and reminded everyone present that beauty lies not solely in possessions, but in the stories that unite them all. As the day of the Eldershire Summer Fair unfolded, moments of profound humility emerged amidst the excitement. Agnes Thistlewood stood proudly at her booth, surrounded by captivated guests, sharing not just the beauty of her jewels but also the personal narratives that breathed life into each piece. Yet it was during a brief pause in activity that a few poignant interactions served to confront misconceptions that had long colored her reputation. Lady Alina, enchanted by Agnes's stories, approached with a twinkle in her eye. "You've traveled to such magnificent places," she remarked, her tone laced with genuine admiration. "I remember hearing tales of your emeralds, yet I never imagined the woman behind them would be so full of life." In that moment, Agnes saw a flicker of realization in Lady Alina's demeanor, as if she were disentangling herself from preconceived notions of wealth and status. Instead of merely viewing Agnes as a poor old lady, she began to appreciate the richness of experience that defined her character. Nearby, two affluent women who had previously dismissed Agnes with disdain now observed her magnetic interaction with children drawn to her booth. "It's funny how we were told to avoid her," one whispered incredulously. "Look at how those children adore her. It's as if they see something we missed." Their expressions shifted subtly. What once was judgment transformed into curiosity and a thawing of their prejudices. A particularly touching moment arose when a shy boy named Oliver, his hands trembling with excitement, approached Agnes after hearing Lily recount the tale of dancing under the Australian stars. "Can you teach me about your jewels?" he asked hesitantly, his eyes wide and earnest. Agnes knelt down to his level, inviting him into her world without hesitation. "Of course, but let me tell you their stories first," she replied, sparking a conversation rich with adventure that charmed not only Oliver but also the adults around them. In his innocent admiration, the boy unwittingly inspired empathy among the adults lingering about. As they watched Agnes patiently teach Oliver about gemstones, their colors reflecting not just light but stories and dreams, they began to reassess their previous judgments. The divide between them started to dissolve as they recognized that true wealth lay not exclusively in monetary terms but in experiences shared and knowledge passed down. With these connections blossoming before her eyes, Agnes felt a swell of gratitude wash over her. She was no longer just showcasing jewels, but rather inviting others to partake in the beauty of life's collective narrative. The interactions forged at this fair revealed a tapestry woven from moments of vulnerability and authenticity, showcasing Agnes's inherent dignity and strength. Each laugh shared, each story recounted served not only as a lesson for attendees, but as a powerful reminder that humility can transcend societal barriers, transforming perceptions one heartfelt interaction at a time. Through these lessons, she proved that within unexpected friendships lay an unmeasurable fortune worth more than all the jewels in her collection combined. In the weeks following the Eldershire Summer Fair, a palpable shift occurred within the community as perceptions surrounding Agnes Thistlewood began to transform. The tales shared amid laughter, and admiration resonated deeply with those who had long viewed her as merely a quirky old lady. No longer did they see only the scruffy shawls or the careful shuffle of her steps. Instead, they came to appreciate the rich tapestry of experiences woven into her very being. Agnes had become a living testament to the power of storytelling, bridging gaps in understanding that had previously divided them. Lily's vibrant tales painted Agnes in hues of wisdom and courage, igniting curiosity among villagers who once turned away. Neighbors who had dismissed her began to seek her out for advice, drawn by an authentic desire to learn not just about gems, but about life. "What would you do in my shoes?" they would ask, their voices tinged with respect for the fostered friendship that had evolved before their eyes. Instead of simply offering material possessions, Agnes imparted lessons harvested from years of travels, ones filled with compassion, resilience, and an appreciation for beauty and diversity. As children flocked to her garden, hopping for stories or a gentle recounting of their own adventures, their parents often joined as well. Community gatherings morphed into lively discussions filled with storytelling sessions led by Agnes. Villagers found themselves captivated by how she transformed ordinary moments into extraordinary narratives rich with emotion and thoughtfulness. The little sessions became gatherings where laughter resonated off walls and friendships formed, each person contributing to a narrative greater than any one individual. Even those once entrenched in skepticism, like Mrs. Beatrice, who had been openly judgmental, began to soften. At local events, she could be seen smiling as she engaged with Agnes over urban-fused teas and baked goods. "You remind me there's more than what meets the eye," she confessed one evening at a town meeting, a statement echoed by others who admitted they tracked their misguided biases back to fear rather than fact. As summer faded into autumn, boundaries faded too, as Agnes's influence spread through Eldershire like leaves carried by the wind. Villagers gathered regularly around her table, now adorned with not only polished stones but also heartfelt conversations, coming together not just as neighbors but as friends sharing laughter and life's lessons. In this newfound light, Agnes shone not simply for her jewels, but for her generosity of spirit that lingered long after conversations ended. The old lady was no longer just perceived as poor. Instead, she became a cherished foundation of the community, her wisdom, warmth, and stories enriching lives far beyond the tangible wealth of jewels. In embracing this holistic view of Agnes, Eldershire thrived in an exceptional tapestry colored by true connection, a transformative legacy that revealed wealth exists in companionship, understanding, and genuine empathy rather than mere material possessions. As seasons continued to change in Eldershire, the legacy of Agnes Thistlewood became deeply rooted in the hearts and minds of the villagers. No longer just the eccentric old woman who collected jewels, Agnes emerged as a beacon of wisdom, compassion, and connection. The transformation was palpable. The community that had once overlooked her now recognized her as a vital thread in the fabric of their lives. In the months following the fair, Agnes's presence became synonymous with warmth and shared stories. Children would gather regularly in her garden, not merely to marvel at her gemstones, but to soak in the life lessons she imparted through tales of adventure. Each story shared became an opportunity for reflection, sparking curiosity about the wider world beyond Eldershire. Agnes encouraged these young minds to dream big, to explore and to form their own connections, teaching them early on that life's true treasures lay not in material wealth, but in the relationships they build along the way. Adult villagers found themselves drawn into her orbit as well. They sought her out for advice not only regarding trivial matters, but also for guidance on more profound issues of life and love. Agnes listened patiently, offering gentle insights that stemmed from her rich tapestry of experiences. She often reminded them that kindness was as valuable as any jewel. It could illuminate even the darkest days and foster a sense of belonging that money could never buy. The impact of Agnes's generosity extended beyond her immediate interactions. As she fostered connections among neighbors, she inadvertently sparked a community renaissance, an awakening that encouraged shared meals, storytelling nights, and collaborative projects aimed at uplifting their little village. A book club emerged from these gatherings, where stories written by local authors were celebrated and critiqued under the very shade of her garden trees. Agnes's influence instilled a newfound appreciation for creativity and self-expression among residents who had previously confined their imaginations. As word spread about Agnes's legacy, nearby towns began to take notice too. Visitors arrived in Eldershire not just to witness her collection of jewels, but also to experience the warmth radiating from this small community transformed by one woman's spirit. Her story became emblematic of how genuine connection could break down barriers and unite even those who once stood divided. Ultimately, Agnes Thistlewood left behind more than just a collection of rare gemstones. She gifted Eldershire a new perspective on life, a profound understanding that true wealth lies within meaningful connections nurtured over time. As people reflected on their journey together, they realized that while Agnes had brought beauty into their lives through her jewels, it was her heart and willingness to share experiences that truly enriched their souls, leaving an indelible mark that would endure long after she was gone. The legacy of compassion and connection became a guiding light for future generations, a reminder that the most valuable treasures are often found in the relationships we cultivate throughout our lives.